Welcome to another edition of Long Island Backstory. I'm your host, Gary Jacobs. This is a show that I was hoping that we wouldn't have to do again, but unfortunately, the heroin epidemic here on Long Island and across the country continues, and it's something that concerns so many of us. We just need to keep talking about it and getting the word out as much as possible. Two guests today are heroes, really, in this fight against the heroin epidemic. It's very easy for people to not get involved and to sit back and say, it doesn't touch me, it only happens to them. But doing something about it is definitely a lot harder than doing nothing about it. And too many of our legislators will just give lip service, do nothing, say, yeah, it's a horrible problem, but we have no money, we can't find the money to do it. To my left is Maureen Rossi. She's been a tireless advocate for change, for working on this epidemic and really doing something about it. And Maureen's special. A lot of people are just tossed into this because their child gets involved in heroin, but it takes a special person who hasn't been touched by one of their children to fight just like it has, and that's something that Maureen does. To her left is Legislator Cilmi from the 10th Legislative District here on Long Island. Tom, he'll tell us about a task force that he started, and really he's taken the lead role in the legislature from what I can see, and trying to do something about the program. We've had a lot of meetings, talked about it. He's brought a lot of information to the table, but somebody's not afraid to get out there and say, hey, we need to do something about this, but yet he's financially conservative. He knows we have limited money. We have to come up with the money and we have to spend it wisely. The first question today is, first, Tom, tell us about the task force that you started.
Sure. So back in beginning of 2014, the Republican caucus of the legislature got together and talked about what were our priorities going to be for that year. And at that time, really this heroin epidemic was really starting to heat up badly. And we wanted to do something about it. So we said that we were going to make budget issues, tax issues, one task force, and substance abuse another task force. And so we put a group together, and we put some advisors together, and we started to dig into what really was the genesis of this problem, what are the components to the problem, and what can we bring to the discussion different than what some of the other groups, and there are many groups that were dealing with this, parent-based groups, professionals in the business dealing with this issue. So we wanted to do something a little differently. So what we decided was that we were going to spend our time keeping the whole problem in the public eye by doing as many media appearances as we could, talking on the radio, talking on television, talking to whoever it was we could talk to, and describing the depth of this problem and how it's impacting in some measurable ways and some immeasurable ways our communities. That was the first part of it. The second part of it was to help advocate for a variety of pieces of legislation that were being put forth at the state level. And so we called literally every single assembly member in the New York State Assembly and every single member of the New York State Senate to advocate for some of the legislation that we saw passed last year that Phil Boyle, as an example, was very at the forefront of. And the third thing that we wanted to do, and this is what we're this is the part in the process that we are now, is to wrap our hands around the tens of millions of dollars, and in the case of New York State, hundreds of millions of dollars that are being spent on substance abuse prevention and treatment. New York State literally spends about $800 million a year on substance abuse and treatment and prevention. Suffolk County spends about $20 million.
And Nassau County?
And I'm not sure what Nassau County spends, but I would venture to guess that it's similar to what Suffolk County spends. In a lot of ways, Nassau and Suffolk mirror one another. In any event, looking at that $20 million in Suffolk's case and saying, okay, well, if you spend X amount on prevention, X amount on treatment, X amount on recovery, we've been doing this now for years and years, we see the problem is growing and not subsiding. Are we spending the appropriate proportions on each of those parts of the problem? Are we spending the right amount on prevention? Do we need to spend more on prevention? Do we need to spend more on recovery? And so right now we're in the throes of looking at that whole component to this problem.
So you're looking at how to spend this what money
Exactly.
is really discretionary for the county? You say there's 80 million in New York State and
Right.
20 million in the county. Can we only control that 20 million?
Well, Suffolk County has no control over the $800 million that New York State spends.
No control at all.
No, well,
other than
changing part of that is the $20 million that Suffolk County spends. Much of that comes from New York State government, and much of that comes with strings attached, and that's been part of the problem in terms of bringing some accountability to the whole problem.
Right. You know what? Tom mentioned something. There's been a lot of different organizations and groups. Kings Park in the Know, which is, I'm one of the founding members. We have been lobbying to get all the stakeholders at one table since 2006.
Which would seem easy. It's such a big problem.
It's just, it doesn't cost money. You don't need to throw money at it. Just get the stakeholders at the same table. Now, I dubbed this first legislative committee, the Opiate Dream Team, and they were. 2007, Jeff Reynolds ran it up, good friend of Tom's.
Yes.
Pam Mitzi, the best and brightest minds in addiction were on this Opiate Dream Team, and I'll always call them that. However, what Tom is doing is different and just as important. He's doing something no one's done before. He's looking at, are we spending the money in the best possible manner? Kids are dying left and right. They're dying week after week. Are we spending it in the right manner? No one has yet to ask that question.
Well, it's easy to get the money. It comes in. They say, hey, we've been doing it this way for so many years. Let's keep doing it. And you know what? I could sleep at night because I put money in it. But you know what? First of all, I don't think there's enough money in it because it's not working. And when they say, you know what, things are tight, you know what? They are tight. But to me, it just really, really annoys me. There's no other. It's just that we gave the police officers, and you don't have to comment on it if you don't want, but you know what? Police officers make a hell of a lot of money here on Long Island. And to me, that's a bunch of crap that we gave them a raise while children were dying.
Right.
And it's a lot of money that these police officers got. And you know what? We have to come up with the money. And I'm not saying just throw money at it.
Right.
Because you can throw money at certain things and it's not going to make a difference. But what you're saying is, let's make sure the money we're spending is working.
Let's make sure the proportions are proper.
Right.
And then when we do have more money to spend on it, then we can allocate that money appropriately so that we're not just throwing money into a black hole and it's not really accomplishing the goals that we wanted to accomplish.
Right. Let me ask, what works? I mean, I see the addiction, it happens, and to me it doesn't seem like this is working. And yes, we do save some lives, and Narcan was just, that was an amazing thing. To me that should be a no-brainer. What works? Does education work? Law enforcement, what works?
Yeah, so clearly there are multiple components to this, right? Education is part of that component, and that goes to the prevention piece. Law enforcement goes to the problem, and that goes to the prevention piece. In my view, we need to be spending more money in the prevention segment of the issue. Not to say that we are able to spend less money on the treatment problem, because the treatment part of it is so very expensive. Maureen knows this.
Yes.
It's so costly, and I don't know that you can take money away from that, but we definitely need to spend more money on prevention, and we need to spend more money on recovery, which is an often sort of neglected component to this issue.
Yeah. I've been saying it since day one. For 10 years I've been saying it. Prevention, prevention, prevention. If we want to be exactly where we are in 5 years from now, skip the prevention. There's no mistake that we find ourselves exactly where we are today. We have a generation of parents who are not ambivalent about pot and alcohol. We've talked about this before. We have a generation of kids who haven't seen prevention since DARE, which was deemed ineffective because it was not evidence-based. And we have, the fifth vital sign being pain. In 2000, I think they made it fifth vital sign pain, and Big Pharma jumped right on that. That is the trifecta. There's no mistake about that. So prevention, prevention, prevention. I'm disappointed in Albany. I was one of the few people. There was a bunch of us camped out all spring. We went over and over and over again. Sometimes we were there for days at a time. And we passed an historic bunch of bills. It was a collaborative effort. Tom mentioned something that I've never heard of. He's a county legislator. We know that. His staff and he called every state representative when we were up in Albany to lobby for the insurance.
That's going above and beyond.
No one could.
You know, what you would say a county legislator would normally do.
Unheard of.
And we have to give them credit for doing that. That's just really taking an extra step. So thank you for that.
We thank you for that.
And you should be recognized for that because
it's unheard of, actually. And prevention. The cops are doing a great job. We've done a lot that works. Doctor shopping. Screeching, I stop. We've put a screeching halt to doctor shopping. Unfortunately, there's a slight uptick in heroin use because, and we predicted that, when you take the pills, those who are addicted to the pills are going to switch. So there's a slight uptick, but I think that will wane. And do I think the epidemic has crescendoed? Yes.
Oh, you do?
I believe it's crescendoed, absolutely. But what good is that to the rest of the kids who are going to die from now until it's over?
Well, that's what I say. If we lose every day,
it's insensitive to even say it's crescendoed. That means if it's crescendoed, it means it's reached its peak, but more will die.
And even if every day we losing a child, or every week we read about it, it's just too much. Our youth are being destroyed, and I'm sure that you've met these parents. I know you've met these parents, and it's just. I tell you, it's heartbreaking.
I've met the parents.
I can't think of the words.
I've met the parents. It is heartbreaking. I've met many doctors who share stories, confidentially of course, of how their offices are inundated with this problem. And we talked a little bit about prevention, but we didn't go into specifics. So education, as you mentioned, is a
and that's fairly inexpensive.
Part of, and that's fairly inexpensive. Of course, teachers in schools are very, very burdened with all sorts of different mandates.
Timing's not great.
Timing is, they have little time to devote to this issue in their classrooms. So that's a problem. Education in the home, however, is a different story. And I think we need to do a better job, and collectively I think we're trying to do that, of giving the tools to parents so that they can work with their kids. In addition to that, prevention from a police enforcement point of view is incredibly important, and the police department is doing a good job. The district attorney, in my view, is doing an excellent job of dealing with this problem. And you would be shocked at the willingness of the public to help root out some of the drug dealers that we see in our communities. I put a simple post on a Facebook page that said the war on drugs in our local communities is on. Please let me know if you suspect drug dealing in your community. Give me names, give me addresses. And so what I've been doing for the past literally several months is collecting information from constituents who maybe they feel uncomfortable calling the police department or whatever, but they're comfortable calling me.
That's a
so
great
they'll
idea.
call me, they'll trust that I keep their information confidential. And I pass that on then to the folks in law
We were the first, we rose up with Northport to the epidemic. There was the two of us. There were other organizations, but we were the first two to rise up to the epidemic. And we are, from what I understand, the only ones with our own hotline. And for 10 years, we've been collecting data and intelligence, and we work directly. Well, I'm not going to say any more about that. A lot of good busts went down.
Right.
And we've been working with that. It's a very important part. But I would be terribly remiss if, when I talk about treatment, I don't mention that we must look at every avenue possible, because this is not like other addictions. Yes, addiction's a disease. Yes, it's a brain disease. I am not an addiction expert. I am just an advocate. However, we'd be remiss if we didn't look at all avenues to wellness, to recovery. Recovery works. We have to get that message out there. Recovery works. And it is blasphemous to suggest even that maybe 12 steps, not that it's not good for everybody. It saved millions of lives in 80 years. It is a godsend. It is a miracle. But maybe, just maybe, we need to look at science as well. Use every tool.
I think we have to try everything.
Everything. 12 steps, Vivitrol, Suboxone, everything at our fingertips must be explored. And I told you this when I addressed all the judges in September at their first luncheon. They said to me, Maureen, we just sit behind the desk over and over again. The recidivism rate, what is going on? And I explained to them how impactful this drug is on the brain. And I know Tom has helped so many families in in his district as well that, you know what, God bless you. How many people are comfortable enough to go up to a politician to say, hey, you know what, I need your help? Right. Not that many, really.
Right. And one of the things that bothered me is if you don't, it's all these things are important, but if your kid's not put into contact with it, you don't have the issue. Maybe they get old enough where they get mature.
Right.
I don't think enough is being done in the schools. I mean, I know a lot of the people you talk to, and they say, where the hell did they get it? You know, right. I can't imagine where they got it. They're not playing in the street. They're getting it from their friends in school. But we're so politically correct. We're not going to search the kids. We're not going to upset them. To me, we have to keep it away from the children. You know, yeah, we have rights, you know, in this country, but they're children. They're going into the school. We really have to. Because listen, they're not exposed to it. They can't do it. Maybe they get to a maturity level where they realize that, hey, I'm not going to try this. Because the kids just, I mean, they don't realize what this is going to do. They do it one time and that's it.
Gary, listen.
The best kids do it.
My legislator is the head of the education committee. Nice fella. I am enormously disappointed. You know, the teachers' union's too powerful. They are it's to their detriment that they're so powerful, actually. Too bad, so sad. Make the time. Too Good for Drugs is one of many evidence-based. It is 10 weeks. It is 40 minutes long. It goes from K through 12. It builds each year on each other. $1 a workbook. Wow. Too bad, so sad. Make it happen. Make it happen.
What else can be done? One of the things people ask all the time, and you have a lot of parents who've lost their children or they're addicted, and some of them just say, look, I'm going to deal with this privately and go on. But there are some that say they're going to deal with their grief by trying to make things better. Mm-hmm. What can they do? I mean, I know I'm in an area where my state senator is really not very receptive to this program. And again, I wouldn't ask you to comment on it, but you know, Senator Flanagan is just very inaccessible. He should be out there screaming, Smithtown, we have a problem. They call our high school Heroin High. You know, it's really a problem. And this guy should be out there talking. So many legislators don't want to talk about it, don't have the courage to talk about it like you do. I don't know why. Why wouldn't you want to go out there? Maybe they don't want to expose that their community has a problem. What can we do to get our legislators involved? A lot of people don't want to get involved till it touches them.
Phone calls, personal visits, sharing personal stories of pain. I recall when I first ran for office in 2009, 2 children, 14 years old, were drinking one night for New Year's, and one of them woke up at 4 o'clock in the morning and rode his bicycle home. The other one never woke up and passed away on the street in West Babylon, around the corner from my in-laws, which is where we happened to be that night. And I made a commitment to myself at that time that I would do all I can to talk to kids about underage drinking. And I firmly believe that this problem has a foundation in that behavior, in underage drinking. And while it's certainly not true that everybody who drinks escalates to pot or to heroin, in almost every case,
very true.
In almost every case, the reverse is true. Where somebody doesn't wake up in the morning and decide to do heroin.
Big jump to do heroin.
But it's not hard to imagine if a kid is drinking and is drunk. That kid is, I mean, a child's propensity to make mistakes because of the lack of maturity is high as it is, without any sort of mind-altering chemicals. You get a kid drunk, and now that kid is apt to do all kinds of things. Worse than that, you put them in a situation where there are other kids or young people in a room at a party, and they're doing these Skittle parties, and they're taking pills, and who knows what they're going to do. And unfortunately, with heroin, it's one and done. You're addicted, and once you're addicted, it's very, very difficult to
that's interesting for the parents, because I know a lot of us say, you know what, heroin's so bad. If my kid's just getting drunk on the weekends, who cares? I'm glad he's not doing drugs.
And that is a huge problem.
And I think that's a big mistake.
Gary,
but I would think if a parent says, say, you know what, I drank beer, I drank screwdrivers when I was a kid, and that's very important that you say that.
He made the most important part, and we never really wanted to be the alcohol police at Kings Park of the No, but here's the deal. You want the deal? We didn't wear seatbelts in the 1960s. We didn't wear car seats, okay? Would you send your child on a lacrosse field without equipment? Right. Then why in God's name would you send them out into adolescence without prevention programs? Alcohol, here's our new research. We have new research. That's why we wear seatbelts. It protects you. It saves lives. That's why our kids wear bike helmets. We have new research. New research says the younger a person, and I only know this because I surround myself with the best and the brightest in the field, uses a substance, it alters their brain and increases their likelihood of addiction. Throw in family disease, family conflict, which is
all the divorce right now, a lot of single families, not even as many people
the
there to watch the kids.
The economy, you know what a risk factor is? A kid in the family with special needs. There's risk factors and protective factors. So honest to goodness, the alcohol is a huge thing. Kids don't wake up on their 16th birthday and snort a line of H. Right. It starts with alcohol. Tom, you made probably the most important point of the night.
Right. And if that saves somebody from saying, hey, my kid's drinking, you know what? I'm going to crack down on the drinking and stop it. Who knows? You may stop your child from being addicted to heroin.
From making a simple mistake. You might stop your child from making a simple mistake that they otherwise wouldn't have made had they not gotten drunk.
It's interesting, and you know, you talk about the education, and part of me says, you know what? What's education going to do? But it's cheap and it does help. But I remember in education, we were talking about drugs in school, that they said, if you try cocaine, you know, 8 out of 10 people might be okay with it and never have to do it again. But 2 out of 10 people, they do it once, and like you said, the one and done. You're addicted the rest of your life. Your brain triggers that, and you don't know if you're going to be that person. I was saying, you know what? I don't want to take a chance.
And I don't know what the numbers are. I don't know the physiology of it, but you said 80% are going to be fine, 20%.
And I don't know the number, maybe. But I don't want to.
With heroin, it's at least the opposite. I would venture to guess most people who do heroin are going to get addicted.
And I would think, as dumb as kids are these days, you know, they're kids. You don't think about the future. I would say if you really could get through to them, say, look, you cannot do this once. It's not a recreational drug.
I like that. Heroin, one and done.
That's it.
I see a bumper sticker.
And if you want to get more elected officials, if you want to get more elected officials involved and out there and speaking about this on a regular basis, you need to clone Maureen. And you need to
we need more Maureen.
You need to get all of those folks who are committed to dealing with this issue.
But Tom, make this a #1 priority. You know, for a lot of people,
listen,
there's 1, 2, 3, 4. So many of our politicians got reelected and didn't even talk about heroin.
No, but we have Phil Boyle, we have Kemp Hannon, we have rock stars.
And go through some of the other people that are on the task force, because we should recognize them for doing all these things also.
Well, Legislator Kevin McCaffrey is a great example. Freshman legislator. He's my co-chair of the committee. He is very active on this issue. He's in the West Babylon, Lindenhurst area. And the other Republican legislators are all committed as well. And I have to say, this issue is not political. There are legislators on the other side of the aisle that are very committed to this as well. Legislator Carahan is an example. She is very, very concerned in dealing with this issue. Legislator Kate Browning is another example. So this is not a partisan issue by any. We all have different ways of dealing with it, you know, but we have lots of partners in this fight, you know, the more the merrier, unfortunately. We need as much help as we can get.
But, you know, we need to find the money now. You know, a lot of talking, and we know things in politics.
Or move the money. Move the money.
We find money for things, you know, when there's a budget shortfall, we sell the Dennison building, and we do all these things to maneuver around. We can't lose the generation. I know you agree that we need to find the money to do the right things. And I'm asking everybody who's watching the show to please, as Tom said, contact your legislator, turn the heat up, because if you don't say anything to them and you just keep re-electing the same people who aren't doing anything about it, why should they change? You know, it's very hard. People want to get re-elected, and hopefully people who are running for office want to make a difference. And I know that both of you want to make a difference, and you are making a difference every day. I went to one of the meetings of your task force. I don't know if it was the first one, and we met some alternative doctors that were trying some different things. And as Maureen said, there's not just a 12-step program. It doesn't work, because that's a cop-out. Because I think as a politician, you could say, well, you know what, the recidivism rate is so high, we don't have the money, why throw it why throw money at it? I say if it saves one life, I don't care if it's $1 million. If it's my child, I'll spend $1 million. These people lose their homes, to do this. But if there are alternatives, let's at least give them a try. We owe it to the children to give it a try. Do you have anything coming up as far as events that people can go? Or if you don't have anything right now, how can they contact you?
They can call my office, 855.
Even if they're out of your district?
Even if they're out of my district, 854-0940 is the office number. They can email me, tom@tomcilmi.com. That's TOM@TOMCILMI.com. They can look up my name on Facebook and communicate with me through Facebook. And the slightest email, what somebody doesn't think can help, can actually help. Out of the meeting that you were at, as an example, we've saved lives.
Absolutely.
We put Narcan in our social services centers, and that's saved lives.
Right.
So,
and I could say from personal
people can make a difference.
Personal experience, the legislator is speaking from his heart when he says this. He doesn't care if you don't live in his district. He will take your message. He'll put you in the right direction. But the legislator really does care about people, and I thank you for that. Keep up the good work. Everything you do, really, there's not many things that you can do in life that you can actually make such a difference that you can save somebody's lives. I mean, it's one thing to pass all these laws, and cameras and speeding and all these different, and yeah, they're important, but what you're doing and what Maureen's dedicated her life to doing is actually making a difference, and you really are saving children's lives. And I thank you for that. Both of you keep up the good work.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Gary, for having us. Thank you so much.